Today I want to show you how to beat the Elite Necrogiant. This is the hardest raid, at least that's what I'm told, in all of Call of Dragons. So stick around in this video for the inside tips and a viewing at the world first takedown of the Elite Necrogiant after the global launch of the game. Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and today I want to show you the Elite Necrogiant takedown. This raid was really difficult, and it's probably the most difficult in the game. And as far as I know, in Server 32, we were the first group to actually accomplish this after the launch of the game. Now, a part of the reason that this is so difficult is you have to win within 8 minutes in order to get the avatar frame. And of course, we want the avatar frame to show off, okay? So I'm going to break down everything you need to know about the fight, and let's just get started. This is one of the attempts where we failed, and there's several things you need to notice. First of all, you see those red circles around the two giants? If you walk into that circle, you start the fight, which means if your team isn't already in the zone, then the fight's going to start, you're going to lose. Okay, it's like an auto lose. This is true of all of the elite bosses, so just be careful. Your alliance officers need to actually start the encounter, then people can walk in, and if somebody aggroes it, again, it starts the fight, the gate seals, nobody new can come in, and it's probably GG for your group. Now, this is a 2-boss fight, and you can see the cavalry tanks in the upper left, marked with hearts, move in, and I move in as a mage tank in the bottom right. That's right, I'm freaking mage tanking, and I'm using Atheist with Velen. The reason I'm using that combo is that it's very important to remember that behemoths are immune to debuffs. So Lilia does most of her damage through Scorch. That's a debuff. It's no good. Okay, not a great combo to use. The best combos to use if you're going to attack the troll that starts on the right. And here I get caught out. This is actually really embarrassing. I swear to you, that's the one time that I get wrecked by this phase. I'll explain all the phases, don't worry. But the boss on the right, you need to deal magic damage to. And the boss that started on the left, that's the Necrogiant, you need to deal physical damage to. Your best options there are high damage cavalry or high damage marksmen, okay? Now, we actually do a lot of rotating in the fight. This phase is called quadrants. After this phase ends, the bosses become attackable again, and they switch places. So you'll see this now. I'm all the way on the left. Boom, they switch places. So now I'm tanking again on the left. It is very important that you have 2 tank teams. One for the physical giant, like I'm doing. Another for the Necrogiant, which you see now in the bottom right portion of your screen. Okay, so what is going on here? In this particular part of the fight, you get to do damage, which is great. But when the boss goes into one of many different phases, the 2 of them become invulnerable. So right now, boom, both bosses are invulnerable. We hit the spheres phase. You need to dodge all the spheres, and ideally, you go from one end of the arena to the other side of the arena, so you're in position to do damage. Now, I have been training my whole life to play Frogger on this grand stage, okay? I mean, if you don't know what Frogger is, okay, I get it. I'm old. But you gotta move from one side of the arena to the other, with the #1 priority being not taking damage, so that you can start doing damage once they leave the invulnerable state and the spheres stop flying out. Now, there's a bunch of different phases you can get over the course of this fight. It's random what order they come in, okay? So we happen to get this phase now. With spheres, you can see the 2 giants are very far apart, and what you don't see is that our 2 tanks marked with a heart, our cavalry tanks, are actually engaging the boss. Everybody's waiting to do damage, and then they call a couple seconds in, okay, DPS engage. This is a very critical aspect of the fight. The reason is that the Necrogiant will do tons of area of effect damage, so you have all of your damage trying to stay behind the giant, but if the tanks can't maintain aggro, then the giant turns on the entire raid, does big area of effect damage, and you will lose the elite raid for sure. This fight, and I've said this every single time we did an elite raid, is all about personal accountability. The biggest difference between our first attempt and our last attempt was that people just got better at doing the things we were saying they needed to be doing. It's honestly that simple, myself included, because obviously the more practice you get, the better at it you'll be. Now, this is a weird one. I am all the way on the right-hand side, and my off-tank, another mage, is tanking the giant so that I could participate in this heal, and that's something I probably should talk about. There are mana stones that drop down on the ground that if 10 people collect them all at once, it does a really big heal. It's critical that you take these heals as fast as you can. Now, here's an interesting problem. The two giants became linked. I love that I can show you all these different mechanics. Why did that happen? One of the mages was standing in the pile of non-mages, and they pulled aggro off of the off-tank. The giant walked over. Why is that a problem? When the two giants are linked, like you saw, you do way less damage. This is also me being a bit of a noob here, taking way more damage than I should. It's not going to matter for this particular attempt, but it is a little embarrassing that I get hit in the super easy Frogger phase of the fight. They were saying that standing around the edges makes this a little easier to do. I generally think that's true. The problem is that when you click around the edges, sometimes the game thinks you're trying to leave the arena, and that is super problematic. So you got to be really careful. Also, if you're standing in the corners, you don't have anywhere to run. So that also can be really problematic if a bunch of orbs sort of trap you in. So you got to play that smart. Anyways, the mana stones on the ground are critical to heal. I had gotten super low. I actually think it's perfectly fine to bring mage DPS, but the mage DPS cannot stand in the pile of the other damage dealers. Otherwise, what you saw can unfold, where they rip aggro off of me as the tank, and then the giants are too close, and then your DPS drops. And if it's enough of a problem that you actually lose the 8-minute timer. Now, we're back in a quadrants phase. Quadrants phase is really easy. You pretty much shift to the other side of the arena by virtue of avoiding the lines that are running out on the screen. And it's so easy. It's so intuitive. I didn't even explain it. But those lines that are going across the screen are a damage field. So don't stand in the damage field, and the damage field is moving, okay? Just stay nice and centered in your quadrant. Now, there is one other thing you'll notice is that now winds are blowing, moving my march around, which is really annoying and makes it very difficult, by the way, to grab the mana stone. The winds are causing a bunch of people to get kind of wrecked there, it looks like, at the tail end. But I think they're trying to grab the mana stone. They're going to get a fat heal out of that, and the party gets healed up. We have 2 minutes left to do enough damage to the boss. And a bunch of people died, by the way. And why is that? Because the Necrogiant is doing tons of area effect damage to the whole group right now. So the positioning there, I think, looks off. And I think you can't make sacrifices to get things like the Mana Stone to the core mechanics that you know are going to make your group win or lose. I think that's very important. Okay, this stage is really critical. Twisting Seals. The two people that have aggro on the Giant and the Necrogiant get a area of protection underneath them. The whole rest of the group needs to get into the area of protection. Basically, the floor is lava, and they're all going to die. This is a great time to go to a Mana Stone together. The one thing that I learned about this that was so critical is that, we wanted to keep the whole group kind of together to keep everyone safe and make a nice big zone. By the way, we're trying to get the Mana Stone right now, but we can't because the winds are blowing. You can sort of see them on the screen. This is a huge problem right here. This was a huge problem. This was a huge mistake. And we fixed it after this attempt. But I started to get really insistent that the mages needed to move away from the rest of the group during that phase. So we would start far apart, we would come together, and then we needed to switch places so that I could pull the giant far away from the group so that I'm far away from everybody else. We didn't do that. This ultimately causes us to wipe. And why do I say that? Look at the health of this. We almost freaking had it! And then it enters invulnerability. GG. So now we got to walk out and do it all over again. Because you can technically finish in 10 minutes and still complete the Elite Raid. But if you want to finish it and get the avatar frame for your server first, it has to be in 8 minutes or less. GG. We got to do a new attempt. By the way, I took a ton of hospital doing this. At some point, I had to actually switch from Celestials, which do way more damage, to Vestals, which do way less damage. But it sort of is what it is. Let me jump to the next attempt here so you can see midway through the winning attempt, and let me explain a couple very critical mechanics. Okay, so here we are in the winning attempt. I started recording like a minute and 20 seconds in. The first part of this was very pedestrian, super easy. So let me show you this, all right? Now, one of the things I haven't talked about yet that's really critical is that when they enter into the invulnerability phases, okay, and you have to like do, dodge stuff and do these different mechanics. When they are invulnerable, if you attack the Necrogiant, that's the one that's currently on the right, if you attack it, you take a stupid amount of counterattack damage. So what people say you should do is you should be constantly moving, so you can't do any ranged attacks to the Necrogiant. The better answer is that you just target the regular giant. If you target the regular giant, it does not do the counterattack damage during the invulnerability phase. Now here you can see, I want to go to the right. I'm like, mages, we're going to the right. Mages, we're going to the right. And I really want to start to move, but I'm also afraid that people are going to, get themselves killed on the lava floor. And it looks like we're just far enough to the right. I really wasn't even aggressive enough. If I'm giving myself feedback here, I was really cutting it close for how aggressive I should have been for making sure that I had this stupid giant all the way on the right. Because if they were linked, your damage drops. If your damage drops, you're going to have a hard time hitting the 8-minute timer, okay? Our alliance at the time of this battle was 3.6 billion power, which is insane for such a young server. And there's another alliance that's also about as powerful in our same kingdom, okay? Which is insane. This is a season 1 situation. It's very unusual. Anyways, we're going to do, hopefully, what I was saying earlier, after we grab this Mana Stone, I should get very aggressive, switch places, okay? And I'm going to say, mages, we're going left. Mages, we're going left. And, I try to not go too fast, because if you move too fast, people get wrecked by the lava. I'm like, all right, mages, we're moving left. Here I do a very good job. All right, I'm going left. This is far enough left. I'm trying to make sure nobody dies here under my care. And boom, that's, okay, I accidentally hit the marker to mark stuff. But that's how it should be. What just happened there? The mages do need to split off. Okay, so other things you need to know about this fight. After 10 minutes, it enrages. So they're going to do so much damage you can't keep up. And there is one phase you haven't seen yet. I hope I will get to show it to you. If not, then I will cut in some more footage in just a minute and show you this additional phase. Essentially what happens in this other invulnerability phase, which it looks like I'll have to pull up another video to show you, is that there's going to be a bunch of purple lines that show up on one side or the other, either the far left side or the far right side of the arena. You just need to dodge the purple fireballs going across the screen. It's very easy. It's like very basic Frogger, but you will be shocked how many people get absolutely decimated by it, okay? At this point, we're so close to getting the win. I'm like low-key freaking out a little bit, and I just really want to make sure I go to the other side of the arena, and I'm in the right place here, because if the giants are too close, it's a bit of an issue. I don't need to have high health. I don't need to have high damage. I just need like 2 more phases of success here, and we get the win. We're 4 minutes and 45 seconds in. Now, one thing I will call your attention to from a tanking standpoint is that I tried using the infantry taunting artifact. I found that to be not necessary for the mage group. I found that using the higher damage artifact and trying to use that to gain threat was just better. So I used the high single target damage of actually the artifact that's ideal for Lilia. Oh, good. Hey, I get to show you the other phase. So here's the fireballs coming from the left-hand side. And there is one spot you're supposed to go where the fireballs are not. So go to that stinking spot. It's actually really easy, but people get wrecked by this. And if a fireball catches you, rather than run in the same direction the fireball was going and eat tons of damage, it will kill you. You should run in the opposite direction the fireball is going and just eat a couple ticks of damage, and then you're in a safe zone, and you can try to get to where the sort of safe bands are. Now, remember, everybody's goal is to switch sides every time we have one of these phases, because the DPS needs to shift with the bosses switching places. So my job as a mage tank was to make my way all the way to the left in this case. The DPS's job was to get all the way to the right. And here we are. We're going to do hopefully enough damage to get the W here. I activate my damage ability. We're doing nice damage. I am using Vestals, which is lower damage than my Celestials here, because I don't have enough Celestials anymore. I got like 100,000 in the hospital at this point. And we get one last invulnerability phase with 40,000 health left on the bosses. This is fine. The bosses are ultimately life-linked. So when you do damage to one, it's just a shared health total that you're working through. It's not like you need to kill both of them and that they have separate health pools. And this stage I do in a sort of embarrassing way, but it highlights something important, which is that even if you're trying to go from left to right, you really shouldn't ever walk right across one of those dark orbs that spawns in the damage orbs, because if a damage orb happens to be sent out at the time you're walking over it, you're guaranteed to eat 3 or 4 ticks of damage and lose way too many troops. But here we go. We got the win, baby. And this was huge. This was a server first. It's my understanding this was also a world first to complete the Elite raid on the Necrogiant after the global launch of the game. I get that the beta servers have done that, okay? But it's a pretty big accomplishment in such a young kingdom to have crushed this raid, all right? And it felt really damn good. If you're looking for more information about the Elite Necrogiants, definitely leave a comment down below. Let me know whatever it is you want to know about how to best handle the fight. I feel like this was incredibly fun. I've got to give a huge shout out to my team for sticking with it. We raided for 4 or 5 hours until we ultimately got the win. And the biggest changes between the start and the ending were ultimately in personal accountability. We made some slight tweaks to how we were tanking things and where things were positioned. But at the end of the day, if everybody's not eating unnecessary damage, then they have more troops. If they have more troops, they do more damage. If you do more damage, you can beat the 8-minute timer, and I believe in you. Good luck in this Elite raid. If you're interested in other crazy things that have happened in my server, I'll have cards in the end screen for 2 huge battles that took place. You're not going to want to miss them. Check them out.